On this week's Infinite Loop Show, we talk about new hardware rumors,
Google being found in bed with cookies,
further breakdown of macOS Mountain Lion,
and how to cleanse yourself of all those other voices. All that and more coming up right now. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Infinite Loop Show. I am Michael Gaines.
And I'm Casey Coughlin.
Hi, Casey Coughlin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Michael Gaines?
Fine. Is your chat room working?
No, it's never working.
Damn the chat room.
That would just be asking too much.
I know. It would be, wouldn't it? We're trying to figure out why her chat room isn't working, but it works for me, and we're both on pretty much the same systems.
Because it's Flash, and Apple hates Flash.
Oh, Apple hates Flash. Okay, is that what it is?
Yes. I don't know.
All right, let's start off with this whole Mountain Lion thing. Have you heard of it? You heard a little bit?
A little bit. I've heard some chatter.
A little bit?
Yeah.
All right, what we're going to do is we decided that we're going to start working on bringing in news of new stuff every now and then. And, of course, the big news now of what's coming out is going to be Mountain Lion.
A little bit.
A little bit. A little bit. What do we have? All right, so playing with it and looking at the videos that are online. All right, we found that you found this. This is kind of cool. Tell us about the contact stuff that you found.
So, yeah, I finally got a partition built up and got Mountain Lion installed. Mm-hmm. And after playing around with it for a while, I noticed that the status of your contacts carries over between applications. Mm-hmm. So what that means is when you have messages open mm-hmm. and your buddy list, you have the green circle for online and available,
sure.
and purple triangle and what have you for, various statuses. Well, that will carry over if you go into mail and say you get mail from those contacts that are in your messages list. Mm-hmm. The same little green circle or what have you will show up next to their name in mail.
Oh, neat.
So kind of like how Outlook and Microsoft Communicator, the exchange status carries over through different programs. Apple seems to be trying to pretty much do the same thing in Mountain Lion, which I think is really nice.
Okay. So what is this? How does this really help anybody? Is this just some cool feature, or is there any other?
Yeah, I guess. I guess if you were just in that one app, say you were just in Mail, like mm-hmm. full screen, and wanted to know immediately if somebody was at their computer and available, then it would be handy. But I think
it's a little stalkerish. I know you're online. Why haven't you responded?
Yeah, I know. I see what you're doing there. But really, I think in most circumstances, people that are going to have messages open, they're going to have other apps open, so they're either going to not care if the person is online and ready to pounce on your incoming email at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Or they're going to be able to see the status in the messages buddy list. Mm-hmm. I think it's just kind of a nice little thing, okay. Not really adding a whole lot of functionality that wasn't there before.
Mm-hmm. You added this one also when signing into accounts on the web in Safari. Mountain Lion asks to add the account in system preferences. So what does that mean? So, for example, if I'm logging into, let's say, some forum somewhere, mm-hmm. is that the kind of account that you're talking about?
No, I think it's only mail accounts or social media accounts. So if I haven't added my Gmail account to mail mm-hmm. or system preferences, and that's kind of new in system preferences too. That mail, contacts, and calendars category that was mm-hmm. always in settings on iOS. Mm-hmm. Well, they have that same category in system preferences on Mountain Lion.
Oh, nice.
Whereas before, you either had accounts that was, for overall user accounts, mm-hmm. or there wasn't really a unified place for mail accounts in system preferences before. Mm-hmm. That was just handled within mail's preferences.
Okay.
Which seems confusing, but it's totally different. So in Mountain Lion, there's a overarching mail preference category in system preferences. So if I don't have, say, Gmail already in there as one of my accounts, and I go to Gmail through the web, through the browser, if it's not already added, Safari will say, hey, I see you've got this thing going on here that you're logging into. Do you want to just add that over here to system preferences and just integrate that to mail, what have you? Similarly, I think to Twitter, I don't think Facebook, I haven't tried that, but it seems like there isn't built-in Facebook integration, so it seems like it's only going to be accounts that you can already set up in system preferences.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So it's basically just smart about it.
Right. If you forget to add something and you're just logging in through the browser, it's going to pick up on that and store it elsewhere.
Okay. You added this one. Now, this one is important to me because I've actually been bitten by this before. In Notes, it's hidden in iOS 5. Well, I really shouldn't use the word hidden, but not a lot of people realize that, is that if you have multiple email accounts in iOS 5 and you use Notes, sometimes you're not sure where your notes are being written to, which account they're being written to. And so what was happening with me was I had all these notes. I write down my ideas all the time, and I was writing down all these notes, and then I wanted to manage them. And I open up listen to me. I open up Mail in Snow Leopard, and there are no notes. There's nothing there. Yeah. And I was expecting them to be. Well, it turns out they're all on my Gmail account. I didn't know that they were going to my Gmail account. And it's great that it was there, but I had to take all of them, copy them, and then paste them over.
Yeah, I would do that all the time, too. Like, I could have swore I just made this note, and now it's not there.
It's not there. So, all right, so tell everybody about this new thing that you found.
Okay, so as we probably know by now, they have a separate app for notes in Mountain Lion. They don't just dump into Mail like they did previously. But unlike Mail, and I kind of don't like this, they don't have a unified all accounts setting. So much like we're talking about kind of confusion as to which account you're writing those notes to and which account is actually syncing them. They all show up separately. Each of your accounts shows up separately in the left sidebar. So you have to click on Gmail. You have to click on iCloud to see notes made and synced to those accounts. Unlike Mail, where you can have that unified inbox at the top and just everything dumps into one bucket, Notes doesn't have that, which is kind of... I feel like they dropped the ball, and hopefully, since it's still a dev beta, that they'll say, hey, that might be a nice thing to have and put it in.
Yeah, it would be, because I would like to know, just like with Mail. Well, see, the thing is with Mail, with the unified mailbox in iOS on your iPhone and your iPad, is that when you click the mail, it actually, the mail message actually shows you what account this is coming from. But you don't get that on Notes, and I would... Right. I mean, granted, I personally don't want all my notes scattered across a bunch of different accounts anyway. I only really want all my notes to go into my iCloud account. But right now, I still have a few that are scattered. And I did test this. There are times, this goes back a few months, there are times when I'll create a new note, and for no rhyme or reason, it'll go to some random account. It'll go to my Gmail account that I hardly ever use. I'm like, well, why did it pick that? Because, I mean, maybe it's programmed in there somehow. Like, rather than I have two main email accounts, my Gmail and my iCloud account. Then those are the two. Why was creating a new note in this hardly ever used Gmail account? I don't know.
Yeah. Unless there's a way to set a default, like you can in Mail, you can set a default reply address. There doesn't seem to be a way to do that in Notes just yet, so it's just kind of, I think, whichever account you're in at the time. Right. I don't know. Yeah. I
don't know. And then this last one that you found, this one was kind of nice to find because I like Growl. So tell everybody about this next one.
I'm really excited about the notifications in Mountain Lion because I, too, love Growl. And use it all the time. And I love the new notification center in iOS 5. But it was kind of So when I first installed Mountain Lion, I set notifications for everything, and thinking alert would be, I guess, the most growl-like option. I put everything to alert.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually the opposite. There's two settings in system preferences that you can set alerts to. Again, a lot like the iOS settings for Notification Center. You can make pop-ups be banners or alerts. The difference between those two would be banners kind of show up in the corner like growl and then disappear on their own.
Like growl.
But like growl. And then they'll just be stored in that Notification Center tray that you can kind of reveal with the side swipe. Alerts sit up in the corner and stay there until you actually click on them or do something. And then once you do either read or dismiss them, they're never stored in the Notification Center. So they pop up and they just go away. So that was kind of frustrating for me, just because I was like, well, I don't want to, if I've been away from my computer and talking on messages, and now I come back to my computer, all those messages are going to file in, an hour's conversation or what have you, so that I've got this fat stream of alerts that I have to click one by one to freaking close.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
All right, so what we'll be doing is we'll be bringing more updates as we find them, either on the internet or what have you. But yeah, this is going to be a little section here where we talk about new stuff that are coming out. But now let's get to the news. Insert sound effects here.
The news.
The news. This one was interesting. Google ignoring the Apple Safari default settings to block third-site cookies. Why would a company do this? Because all you're doing is you're just going to piss a bunch of people off.
Right. Well, I think they probably either didn't think people would find out or thought that they would get away with it long enough that it wouldn't really matter. I think their the main reason to do this is, half of the third-party cookie sites, they're getting paid. They're either totally in bed with or getting paid by, on the side.
Yeah.
What is it, pay-per-click or now I'm totally blanking on a lot of them, but they're third-party sites that you don't actually visit, but are kind of in the background of sites you do visit. Now, this setting is by default in Safari, to where usually the default setting for cookies will be only store cookies from sites I visit, and don't obviously store cookies from sites I don't visit. And that would be the third-party cookies that are just kind of lurking in the background. There's actually a Firefox plugin. Now, I hate Firefox, but this is pretty good, called Ghostery, that you can run in the browser, and it will tell you everything that's running on a site. So, for instance, I think they used Wall Street Journal as an example. There's something like 11 ad companies running on that site, tracking page views, clicks, all of that.
The way that it works, there's an infographic on the Wall Street Journal, WSJ.com. Essentially, there's this invisible form that's embedded in an iframe, and then the code fills out this form and then sends it. And the user didn't do it. Basically, Google did it by itself. And, of course, as soon as the Wall Street Journal contacted Google about it, they turned that off. Again, did they think that... It's getting to the point now where you can't do anything like this anymore, because there's always somebody that's sniffing packets on their own system. And this kind of behavior just isn't going to go past maybe another year or two, I don't think. Well,
no, it's like, posting pictures or dialogue on your Facebook that you think is only being shared with a select group of people. There's no privacy, no matter who you are and what you're doing. Everything is up for grabs and out in the open and can be found out. You can't hide anything from anyone on the internet.
No. Tim Cook admits that Apple may merge iOS 10 and did I just say iOS 10? I think I did. iOS and OS 10 a little more. This is all right. So he did an interview with the Wall Street Journal again. We're mentioning the Wall Street Journal, and he said that it's possible that they may merge them even more, and yet the Macs could even run on ARM CPUs. I don't know if you would get ARM-based Macs before we would get Intel-based devices. Mm-hmm. Because, what?
Well, they might even be one and the same, since Intel is kind of launching that endeavor into getting back into the ARM business. Mm-hmm. They left it years ago, but they're actually putting resources into this and trying to build that part of their business back up. Mm-hmm. And so if that happens, but I mean, they even still, with the iPhone and iPad, Apple has like their own custom ARM chips.
Sure.
So they might use Intel's, but I mean, they have their own, so why wouldn't they just go with that?
I don't know. Basically, Cook said that they don't close things off. We don't know what's going to happen down the line, but this goes back to what I was telling everybody a week or two ago, is that with iOS and OS 10, where the output of the data is different, feeding the data can be the same. So this is similar for a very basic UI table. It's a UI table view cell, I believe. Mm-hmm. Or no, I'm sorry, a UI table view, not the cell, but the view, where you just feed on a very basic level the data, and then the operating system just takes care of everything on its own, as long as you do it properly. Mm-hmm. Same thing here. You can feed the notification center on iOS with data. You can feed it the same way, like on the iPhone and the Mac, and it'll display differently, but you feed it the same, so you only have to write one piece of code. The difference between whether or not anything runs on ARM or whether or not they run on Intel, and I have to deal with this as a developer, is that the simulator, I have to build the code for Intel. And then if I actually want to run it on the iPhone, if I want to run my app on the iPhone, I have to build it for ARM. So you can't use the same binary on both. You have to recompile them. So maybe they're going to, it seems to me, and I think that Apple wants to get away from the whole emulator that they used to have, like when you could run PowerPC stuff on Intel. Remember that? Yeah. Because there are a whole bunch of issues with that. But if they want to get away from that and have one binary that runs on both types of systems, then they're going to have to unify it with one kind of chip. It seems to me.
Yeah, and it kind of goes hand in hand with your whole theory that the two operating systems are just going to become one down the line anyway. So,
So we'll see. What else we got? You have a couple of things here.
Well, I think the class action lawsuit was yours.
Oh, that's right.
Which is kind of funny because they really didn't come to any conclusion that was different than Apple's original solution.
Yeah, didn't we all get bumpers like a year or so ago?
Yeah, I did.
I got one. It broke, but
well, a bumper, or I think your choice. They gave you a choice of a few different cases you could get to solve this antenna problem for the iPhone 4S. Mm-hmm.
So, are you gonna fill out your form and do this?
Yes, because I desperately need $15 from Apple.
Do you really?
Or better yet, in a total nerd fangirl move, I could do this, get a check for $15 that's made out from Apple, and just frame the check.
Oh, that would be nice. Because you would
from
do that.
Apple
You just
to Casey?
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty awesome.
Add it to your wall behind you. With your, for those of you that are listening and not watching, Casey has shadow boxed devices.
Only Apple devices.
Only Apple devices, and
only ones pretty enough to be put on display.
Yes, and an Apple sticker.
And, well, it's a good design too. So
the big, I don't know if I would want to call it the big news this week, but what's important this week is that ABC's Nightline was going to go into the Apple factory and show everybody what it looks like inside Foxconn. When I see stuff like this, I get a little skeptical because there are two issues here. One, Foxconn knows that they're coming. So it's like when you're having company. What do? What's the first thing you do when you know you're having company? You clean your house. Right?
No, I empty out the trash can onto the floor and then kick it around.
No, so you clean up your house. And so there have been reports that before Nightline got there, that all the underage employees were sort of given the day off, or they were put in a different department. You and I watched this. Did it really show anything that we didn't already know?
Not really. I mean, so they make a big... And again, I feel like anytime we talk about this, I'm making light of the entire situation, and I'm kind of making it seem like the whole situation isn't a big deal. But I think the overhype is just that. When Nightline, they went in and they just their dialogue and their writing and the way they presented it. Oh, we have unprecedented access, and it's so unbiased, and look at this first glimpse in a factory. Look at how they work, at a desk, and they sleep in bunk beds. And it's like, we knew this already. Yeah. We knew what their living conditions were. We knew that there were suicide nets everywhere. We know they work long hours. We know that they do just one teeny tiny job and then, push the product down the line like an assembly line.
Yeah, we knew all this.
I mean, these are like common similarities between all factories.
We didn't actually see the assembly line. We didn't actually see the dorms before. There were a lot of things that we didn't see on the inside.
Yeah, so maybe we thought they were blue instead of white. But
right, but what I'm saying is that after seeing them, I just went, okay, so like big deal. We have a bunch of people that are working on an assembly line. I didn't see any bad working conditions, and they spoke to people that said that the biggest problem they had was that they had low pay. Well, that was when
their
it was
major complaint was wages.
Right, and that was filmed a little while ago. We found out maybe 2 or 3 days ago that Foxconn is raising everybody's wages. Is that enough? I don't know, but I just felt that even ABC is owned by Disney. Disney has people from Apple on their board. And they mentioned that on the show, and
oh yeah, they
and
did.
And they said that if something went wrong, we would report it, and I believe that. But at the same time, I just keep thinking that this was just a dog and pony show.
Yeah, no, it definitely feels like. Well, I mean, I can see their point in them wanting to have like this investigative journalism, inside look that nobody else. Unprecedented access that nobody else could get.
Right.
But at the same time, it is a relatively big scandal, and the more everybody talks about it, the bigger it's going to get, and the more appetizing it looks for ratings.
Oh, sure. So, I wasn't very impressed with it. Were you?
No, I was not impressed with their working conditions.
No, not the word. I just meant the report itself. Smart ass.
No, I know. It almost seemed like some of the writing, in his narration almost felt like very sensationalist, like they were writing for MTV or something.
You think so?
It was just like his the adjectives used and the way he was just describing stuff. It was at times just really overly flowery and just really, I don't know, just too
I'll
much.
have to give you that. I yeah. Totally agree. All right. This whole Apple Proview thing.
Yes.
Now they're in court. This is kind of it's almost funny, but Apple said to the judge, look, this company has nothing. They have absolutely nothing. They have no customers, they have no assets, they have nothing. And then this is sort of a last-ditch effort. Maybe it's a loophole, maybe it's an actual mistake, who knows. But Apple is saying, look, to the judge, if you cause all this, if you cause the iPads to not get out of China and for us to not sell them, it's going to hurt your economy. And I don't know how much of the Chinese economy is going to be hurt by just the iPads, but it is going to hurt a lot of people. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. So what's the deal here? It seems to me like Proview is just reaching at this point.
Oh no, it's totally obvious that Proview is really just like they were just chasing an ambulance, or driving around looking for somebody in a Mercedes that they could crash into and then get some insurance money out of him. They're just looking for an easy way to get some money since they're really
they're desperate.
Yeah,
that's really what they are. Is that they're desperate. They have no business model. Somebody in the corporate office probably said, "Do something with this." We have no money. Find a way. And this really irks me when companies do this, because it seems to me that if a company knew how to make money in the first place, they wouldn't have lost it all. So even if they get however much money, let's say hypothetically Apple loses, if they get the money from the settlement, they might not be able to spend it properly anyway, and they'll just blow it. And then what?
I like your theory. That's very good. We shouldn't give them the money or settle, because they're clearly not able to manage their money properly, so they're just going to blow it on rims and gold chains, and we can't give it to them. Until they learn how to balance their checkbook, they should just be grounded.
It may be true. It's entirely possible that they just don't know how to manage the money, and this is their last-ditch effort. And I just don't like that kind of business practice. It just seems scummy to me.
No, it totally is.
All right, this one's yours. Tell us about the data center.
All right, so, not a big deal and not much news in this, but Apple's planning to build another data center.
In Oregon.
In Oregon, and we all know they need more data centers. Every time Siri can't find where I am or, give me the square root of 96, I curse the heavens and wonder why Apple isn't building more data centers.
The square root of what is it, 96?
Yes. I need to know that on an hourly basis.
Okay, it's probably like 9.8 or something.
Okay, I'll just call you next time.
Call me next time.
All right.
Just call me Siri.
Whoa.
No, really. So the data center there's a data center down in North Carolina. We all know about that one. Now they're going to build this other one. It makes me wonder why they need a second one and on the West Coast.
Well, I'm thinking Siri and iCloud, with Mountain Lion leveraging iCloud even more between all the apps defaulting to saving documents to iCloud, and also backing up your computers to iCloud, not just your iOS devices. They're going to need a lot more storage and a lot more processing. And having one on the East Coast and the West Coast, then they can divide up the U.S., much like having game servers.
Yeah, I suppose.
On each side.
I was just a little curious, because I thought the whole point of the data center down in North Carolina was to feed what Apple already has to feed everybody. iCloud music and all that. It's a massive data center. I didn't think they needed any more space.
Well, look at how big Apple is. And if they're planning on... Well, okay, so they said, I think it was 2 years from start to finish on the North Carolina data center. So if they're planning that data center now, give or take, you can plan for it to be up and running in about 2 years. So then you could say maybe Apple doesn't need it right now, but they're planning to have grown so much in those next 2 years that they're going to be really glad that they did that.
Well, that's what was going to be my next thing, is that maybe there's something that they know that we don't. They can
but they don't know.
No, thanks. No, there's something that they know that we don't. Something brand new.
Oh no, there's tons of stuff. Yeah.
It could be HD movies, 1080p. It could just be too much for what's down in North Carolina. There's it's a distant thing to say, but there's some 4K stuff that's around. You can't buy like 4K Blu-ray, so to speak. You can't do that, but there is 4K stuff that you can buy. You can't walk into Best Buy and get it, but you can get it. So it's entirely possible that a few years down the line they may need that. I don't know. I don't expect 4K to even be viable for at least another 6 years. 5 or 6 years, if that.
And I don't expect... Yeah, you're not going to... I don't think we're going to have mainstream displays and televisions even leveraging that for at least 2 years, really. You know, you might see 1 or 2 in Best Buy on the wall within 6 months to a year, but they're not going to be all over the place and easy to get a hold of.
No, I'm just saying that's the only thing that I can think of right now that Apple may even care about. But I think of 4K as maybe a very long shot as to what they need another data center for.
Or, well, I mean, speaking of the 4K, you know, these rumors of the Apple televisions, whether or not they're 4K, depending on if they do apps or what have you.
True.
That's going to be, you know, adding to the load. I'm sure they have tons of stuff in the pipeline that's probably just going to be all the more leveraging on iCloud, but even still, just more of everything.
All right, what do you have here about the iPhone 5 rumored to launch in the fall?
So this was kind of nice. Well, I kind of had a feeling, and a lot of people kind of were debating that this might be the case, but this latest rumor kind of just clinches it, that the iPhone 5 isn't going to launch until about September, October of this year, pretty much a year from when the 4S launched. When the 4S was pushed back, because up until this point, the iPhone had always launched in June at WWDC. Last year, when the 4S wasn't launched until October, a lot of people were speculating that Apple might be trying to push back that launch date just for the iPhone, because they have very specific timelines and launch dates for all their categories and each piece of hardware.
Yeah.
So that they might be trying to move the iPhone up later in the year, maybe closer to the holidays, to kind of leverage those sales and get a bump there.
Sure.
So this was kind of already a rumor. A lot of people were debating, and it made sense. But then again, like I said, this new rumor just kind of solidifies that and seems to be the case.
So at this point, we really don't know much about the iPhone 5, except that it may be bigger. And
yeah,
that's it.
Maybe a slightly bigger display, and then I guess less bezel to add to that. Probably, I guess, thinner, because it's not thin enough right now.
It can't be too much bigger, because then you're going to get into like tablet space.
Oh, yes. No, we don't want to enter that popular phablet.
Oh, no, you said it. You said the phablet word. You said the P word.
I hate it.
I don't know.
Maybe if we say it more, it'll just get so played out. Nobody will use it.
I don't think so. There's a rumor going around that the iPad 3 is going to have a Retina display. It's apparently confirmed. This means it's going to have 2048 by 1536, which is huge. This is going to be nice. I mean, it's going to have better resolution than the monitor I'm using now. This is 1920 by 1280. Wow. I'm sorry, 1920 by 1200. Yeah, that's amazing. To keep it that.
Yeah, I like that Mac Rumors is saying confirmed, but nobody has any idea who is confirming this and where these rumors are coming from and where any of their sources are coming from.
But we'll know in 2 weeks.
We will. You know what else we'll know in 2 weeks?
What?
More about Office for iPad, apparently.
This is so funny. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what happened here. The Daily claimed that they had a picture of Microsoft Office running on an iPad, and they showed it. Now, look, anybody with decent skills in Photoshop can put up anything on an iPad and say,
how dare you say that? They had a picture.
I can make a picture too. You can make a better picture than I could.
That's it. That all you need is a freaking snapshot. How can you say it as real, or is it happening?
It's the real thing. So anyway, the Daily says, oh, look, we've got a snapshot of Office running on an iPad. Okay. Microsoft says, nope, it's all false. You know what? I'll quote it. Okay. It says, a Microsoft spokesperson said the screenshot accompanying the Daily story is not a real picture of a Microsoft software product. Now, let's talk about this.
Yeah, a lot of people are breaking this down word by word.
You got to break it, because you and I have been around the corner in tech for a very long time. You got to break this down in the sense to say it's not a real picture of a Microsoft software product, meaning it's not out yet or it's a fake picture. They're being intentionally vague about this whole thing.
Right.
It says, but the spokesperson also said Microsoft is declining to comment as to whether or not the company has developed a version of Office for the iPad. This is from ZDNet. So we still don't know if this is true. Now, the person who reported this, Peter Ha, wrote on Twitter, we did not fabricate either image. A working version of the app was demoed to us by someone at Microsoft. That's entirely plausible. He also goes on to say that this image also ran with the story, and then he links to the Daily story. And then he challenges Microsoft. He says, do you want to dispute this one too, Microsoft? And then the last tweet that he wrote about this says, for the record, the image that accompanies our Office for iPad story is not fake. Now, here's somebody who's putting their reputation on the line about this whole thing.
Right, because then you just get into, like, just false advertising and just wrong journalism. So obviously they have some ground and some reasons to be defensive, aside from the fact that Microsoft's pretty much just calling them liars. The last tweet from one of Microsoft's official, I think it was not really developer accounts. Anyways, one of the official Microsoft Twitter accounts said, great respect for the Daily, but regrettably someone is giving them bad info. And that'll be clear in the coming weeks.
Quotes around coming weeks. Now, what does that mean? Again, does it mean that Microsoft is going to go after the Daily? What could they really go after the Daily for? Nothing.
Nothing.
They can't really go after them for anything. So, really, the only thing that'll be clear in the coming weeks, we're gleaning from this that there's going to be a version of Office for the iPad.
And we've kind of known this for a while. I mean, it was rumored and leaked months ago.
Sure.
And we've kind of been... I mean, this kind of happens with a lot of Microsoft stuff, or maybe it's just me, and I think that happens a lot of stuff. Someone leaks it, or rumors come out about a new Microsoft product or a look with Windows or Office, and how screenshots come out. Everybody gets all excited.
Yeah.
And then they forget about it because Microsoft takes so damn long to launch stuff that people have completely forgotten by the time it comes out. So here it feels like there's two things going on here. A, Microsoft came out like the same day the Daily had this rumor and squashed it, which is weird. Which is, yeah, it's super fast, and for them to come out explicitly and squash that, not just come out and say no comment, whatever, but specifically talking to that rumor and those pictures is weird. And B, it just feels like Microsoft wanted to be all Apple-esque in being secretive, you know, and just kind of sneaking around the corner and being like, bam, look, new Office for iPad, aren't we great? You know, kind of how Apple does, but somebody blew their load early, and now Microsoft's all butthurt because they can't do it themselves.
Well, you can put it that way. Yeah, but you know what's happened before is that Apple has had their stuff. I mean, look at all the pictures of the supposed parts for the iPad 3. Right, we've got a whole bunch of what is wrong with your video? Your video is okay. Now it's fixed. There are some. Pay
no attention to the video.
Yeah, there are some pictures of what are supposedly parts for the iPad 3. Your video is blinking, and I don't.
Maybe
know why.
I'm just having a disco.
You know what?
Here,
I think.
Okay.
I don't know why that's happening. Let's fix this real quick. Let me
I
shrink
don't
you down
know why.
and max you out again. And I don't know why it's okay. We'll fix it. We'll get you working. There you are. But all right. So hand in hand with that is that there are supposed pictures of SkyDrive on the iPad. No, I'm sorry, not on the iPad. On Mac.
Mm-hmm.
So it's possible. Let's look at the ecosystem of where Office works. Okay. You create a document on Office. You're on an iPad. Assuming that you've got an internet connection, you could probably save it to the local storage. As a developer, I know you can store things in local storage, and then you can either sync it over the air or sync it using iTunes, so that you can pull the file off. You can get it to a machine somehow. If Office is coming out for the iPad, where's the default going to be? Is it going to be iCloud, or is Microsoft going to come up with a SkyDrive solution?
Have you looked at the OneNote app that's already out?
No, I haven't.
It
for the
goes
iPad?
to Sky. Yeah, for I believe it's a universal. I don't think there's two, but there's an iPad and an iPhone version.
Oh, yes. I looked at that a year ago. Yes,
yeah.
I remember, and I never use it.
It goes to SkyDrive.
Does it?
Unless they've updated it recently. There wasn't an iCloud option. They very well may have updated it, because it would be kind of, I don't know, silly, and possibly even Apple able to reject the app, right out if it didn't have an iCloud option.
I went to log into OneNote on my iPad and it crashed.
Well, I don't want to say anything, but
Microsoft OneNote for iPad. Okay, so they must have come out with a new version.
But yeah, I've heard of apps being declined by Apple in the review submission process because they didn't have the option to write to iCloud or iCloud implementation at all.
That would make sense. Apple's trying to keep this ecosystem going where they want people to store stuff in the cloud. But at the same time, now if you're a Microsoft employee and you want your SkyDrive to have its own ecosystem,
the same exact wants and needs for your competing cloud solution.
Sure. And now it's trying to log in. Okay. So I don't know exactly what's going to happen with that. We don't know for sure. It just seems to me like what Microsoft is now that, well, let's go off on another tangent about Windows 8 for tablets. That's a whole other issue. Now, are they trying to use the iPad to sort of springboard people into using Windows 8 on tablets? It's like, look, all your stuff is already there on SkyDrive. Now all I have to do is just buy a tablet and you can use it there too. Yeah,
well, it kind of feels like they're just trying to leverage SkyDrive through any means necessary. I mean, there may very well be a concrete flowchart, for this process, but it seems like as many places as they can attach SkyDrive, they will.
Okay, and that's entirely possible. But I remember when SkyDrive first came out. For a second, I thought, oh, that's cool. But I never used any Microsoft products, really. I mean, other than
what it
my
felt
Windows
like
machine for gaming. What did it feel like?
That iWork, like iWork.com.
Sure.
It was just like that. To where, same kind of difference, where I use iWork all the time, but I almost never used iWork.com. Because I had an iDisk and I had MobileMe at the time. So I'd put stuff on my iDisk and then email it to people from there.
Sure. I'm logged into Microsoft OneNote on my iPad, and it continues to spin and spin and spin, and it's just, I don't know what it's doing, so I'm just going to leave it here for a while and see what happens. All right, let's move on to our culture section. This is where we talk about things outside the usual news. I put down jailbreaking because I know we talked about it before, and I asked you why you do it, but now that you've jailbroken your phone and you've had it running for a few weeks, does it still feel solid? Is it stable? I mean, how is it?
I mean, there's a good list of both pros and cons for it. And I can't really say that it feels 100% solid.
Okay, so what happens?
Random crashes, random app crashes. And I mean, granted, this can all happen with the stock iOS non-jailbroken. But what also occurs fairly random and just happened to me today when I'm trying to access something really quickly. It's so frustrating. It randomly, the springboard crashed.
Really?
So that's like Finder crashing on your Mac.
So what happens when you're faced with that problem?
It looks like it's rebooting, but it's faster. It's not a full reboot. It's kind of just a half-C. But it means you can't do anything until it's finished.
Oh.
And if I'm trying to do something quickly, be that when I'm not driving, this, is just terribly frustrating. And I just have to, like, set it down and go, okay, take your time, because you're not a fast smartphone that's totally capable of, doing what I want at a moment's notice. I have to wait on you now. That's really frustrating whenever that happens.
Do you ask Siri how to fix it? Siri, how do I fix my jailbroken phone?
I should see what she says. But I mean, frustrating stuff like that with things crashing, not lining up properly. It's kind of counterbalanced with nice features like having complete access to the file system. You can SSH into your phone and dump whatever the heck you want on there and have actual folders, download stuff just like you would on the desktop. You're not relegated to how Apple wants the stripped down operating system to feel and behave. That with Wi-Fi tethering for free, you can even fake Wi-Fi. So when it's on 3G, there's an app you can download to make it think it's on Wi-Fi. So you could do like FaceTime on 3G, Google Hangouts on 3G.
Right. Which you were doing the other day.
And then, of course, the customizing the interface, sounds, and even Siri. There's some great Siri hacks now that you can install to get her to do better functionality that she won't do on her own. She'll tweet for you. She'll open apps. Little things like that you're just kind of like, why doesn't she do this already? You can hack it, to do pretty much whatever you want. But with that comes random slowness, reboots, the instability that we kind of take for granted and laugh at other platforms for having.
It's funny because as a developer, I just keep thinking that this thing is just essentially doing what it's supposed to. It's just running the API and doing its thing and humming along. Why would it crash? Because and honestly, I say that because I don't know enough about the whole jailbreaking system and how it happens. But I was under the impression that now I realize it's getting harder and harder to jailbreak a phone.
Yeah,
so they probably have
every iteration, it's going deeper and deeper.
Right.
Like with the 2G and 3G, it was just a software hack. With the 3GS and the 4s, it's a deeper firmware hack.
Right, and so now you're probably getting so deep that they're not covering all their tracks, and it's hitting a wall and crashing. I'd have to research that more.
And anytime you install little hacks like that, the Siri hack, the barrel hack, where it does a different animation when you swipe through desktops. That's kind of just like injecting code every which way. And if bridges don't always connect where they would normally, and things just kind of start to, they're kind of there and they're kind of close, but once in a while they just fall apart.
Yeah. After all this time, is it still worth it?
God, I honestly was asking myself that on the way home today when it was randomly rebooting for no apparent reason. I don't know.
You don't know? You're going to keep it for a while? Keep it jailbroken?
Well, yeah, I'm not going to restore it just yet. I might go another week and see.
And then all you have to do is just a regular
DFU restore.
DFU, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to go that deep. You have to do a DFU. You can't just... Okay.
No. Yeah. You have to do a DFU.
Okay. All right, let's move on to our apps of the week. I picked Cyberduck because I use it so much. I mean, I use it for this show. I use it for all my podcasts.
It's been a must for me for years. It's my primary FTP client. I even have Dreamweaver, which is kind of silly because I only use it in code view. And it has FTP built into it, but I never use it.
I've been using Cyberduck for a while. Long time. I forgot what I was using before then. What was the popular one on like Mac OS 9? 8 and 9. There was... I can't remember what it was.
I wasn't FTPing back then, so I didn't need one.
Well, sorry. But it's free. The only thing is that there's this window that comes up that says, please donate. I should probably donate.
I know,
a bad
me too.
user.
I know, it like guilts me every time.
User.
I'm like, no, next time. I promise, next time I will.
I really will. I will, and then I don't. So if you're looking for a free FTP, if people are having trouble financially nowadays, and you know what, it's not even that. It's not even that. I have paid for bad apps, like bad FTP apps. There's one on Windows that's really good. I think it's FTPX or XFTP or something like that. It was really good. And Cyberduck is not as detailed as that one, but I mean, sometimes you find a real gem that's worth paying for. I have actually paid for FTP apps on the Mac, which were terrible, and so I should probably donate to Cyberduck. I'm a bad person.
So in conclusion, really should be donating.
Yeah, should be.
So my app is something that we found yesterday that just cracks me up to no end.
Tell everybody how we found it.
Okay, so little shout out to NSFW on twit.tv. I don't even know how they got into it. I think they just found it and were playing it on the air competitively, like split screen with Brian Brushwood and Justin R. Young. And just like it's the quirkiest, weirdest game that's the most difficult. Like more difficult than old school NES games that were literally unbeatable.
Yeah, it's not like track and field where you can move your Atari joystick back, forth. You have to control the thighs and the calves of each leg with a different key, and it's not apparent what they're doing. So the first time you do it, you hit a button, and all of a sudden they're flipping over themselves and flying forward.
It's not button mashing at all. So there's a website. It's called QWOP. QWOP. If you just Google it, or it might even be just QWOP.com.
I don't know if it is.
So there's a web game interface, and there's also an iPhone game that you can get in the App Store. If you just, again, search for QWOP, it'll come up. It's a running game, like you said. And in both cases, you're controlling the thighs and the calves separately, which is just bizarre and apparently near impossible to do. But in any case, hours of entertainment, and I love it. I think my best score, here's what the iPhone version looks like.
All right, so she's showing people in the chat room and Ustream. It looks like a runner, just basically on a field.
Yeah. And so the iPhone version, you have like wheels that on each side. One controls the thighs and one controls the calves.
And then what do you do? Just run the wheels around?
Yeah. Well, I mean, each side of the wheel, like the right side will have a straight out leg, and the left side will have a bent leg, and so they rotate like that to control what it does. And then you can also lean the phone, tilt it, and it will lean the character. All of which does not help me get past 7 meters, really.
And I beat you yesterday with 15 point something.
You did. What was your secret strategy?
So there's this fluke with the game where you can actually get the guy on his knees, and then you just keep hitting the right. I don't know what the combination was,
but the guy on his knees.
Basically, he just sort of like bounces on his knees, over and over, like an inch at a time, an inch. And on the website, what happens is that every time he moves a little bit, the Chariots of Fire music starts. And so you just try to keep him
because that's
running.
Gonna help.
Yeah, it's going to help. You keep them running, and and the music keeps going. You want to keep that music going, but I couldn't do it. So I found him in this position where he was just like in this contorted position on his knees, and I would just go bounce, 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 and he would go an inch at a time. And I said, "Aha!"
Out of context.
I know, out of context, it's really funny, but even in context, it's quite funny.
Yeah, no, seriously, hours of entertainment. If you go to QWOP.com, or I guess just Google search for QWOP.
Yeah.
On the iPhone, I forget if the web game has this, but on the iPhone, every time you fail, like a newspaper pops up with a different headline every time, and it says, disappointment or whatever.
It's not QWOP.com. It's actually foddy.net/athletics.
Oh, that's right. It's weirdness.
Yeah, it's foddy.net/athletics.html, and it's got a capital A, but I don't think it matters. I don't think the website's really. There was a time years ago when if you used a capital and lowercase letter, you get a different URL, but I don't know if that happens anymore. That was ancient times. So
yes,
that's it. All right, what's our trip? You've got our trip for this week.
Yeah, so I found this at work when I was setting up some new MacBook Airs for our executives, and one of our managers has the AT&T, what is it, USB Connect Mercury. It's a 3G USB data stick so that he can, have data on the go. So it's got a Mac install and a Windows install, no big deal. But I could not get it to install on the new Lion Air because it's 32-bit. Lion defaults to 64-bit now. Yep. All the way up until Snow Leopard, this was not the case. Macs could do 64-bit, but it still booted by default into 32. Lion was the first time, and now going forward, that it actually boots into 64-bit. Right. You can then switch to 32-bit, but the default remains 64. So I was able to install it by booting into 32-bit by holding down the 3 and the 2 keys on boot. But from there on out, if he ever wanted to use that 3G card, and just booting it up normally, I couldn't. I knew it would just be too much to ask him to hold down the 3 and the 2 keys. The 3 and 2
every time he wanted to boot.
Yeah, right, exactly. So I did a little research, and I found there's a terminal command so that you can actually tell the start disk to boot into whichever architecture you want. So if you go into terminal and you do sudo system setup, set kernel boot architecture, i386. That will set the default to 32-bit. And I believe there's a 32_64, which will tell it to boot to 64 by default. But in any case, I found that infinitely handy.
And that really wouldn't cause a problem, would it? Because most apps nowadays really don't care.
Both.
Yeah, they do both. But this is why I don't like having... I used to have a Sprint USB 3G stick years ago, and I had nothing but problems with it because it had nothing to do with 3264. But my point being is that this is why I have a Verizon MiFi now, is because now I don't have to worry about this kind of junk. Right,
exactly. And a lot of the forums were saying with stuff like MiFi is where it connects over a local Wi-Fi. Not a big deal what your computers boot into, but the solid connection ones, the USB cards, which are just always quirky, and I never understood why, because you could just hit it and bend it and whatever. But in any case, a handy little tip in case you run into something like that, and any other older drivers that are 32-bit only.
Sure. Okay. All right, that's it for this show. If you want to contact us, Casey has set us up the bomb.
Yay, we have 2 new ones as of an hour ago.
All right, why don't you tell us what the new ones are?
We have our own Google Plus page now. You can link to it at gplus.2/infinite loop show. And then we also have a Facebook page now. Yay! Facebook.com/Infinite Loop Show.
Awesome. And you can get us on Twitter at Infinite Loop TV. Our YouTube channel is The Infinite Loop Show. If you want to hit me on Skype, did I just say Skype?
On Twitter. In time.
No, I was reading the wrong thing. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, I am at StarMike. Casey is Casey Queso. I'm going to get this right this time. I'm not going to do the little jingle.
Oh, it's the test.
KACEYKASO.
Yes, the Casey, not the cheese.
Yeah, that's right. And if you want to email us, theinfiniteloopshow@gmail.com. So I want to thank everybody for watching and listening, and we will talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.